And we're live, I think. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I've got Mark here with me, Mark Ellis from Mark Ellis Reviews on YouTube. And I've also got Patrick Rambles from Patrick Rambles on YouTube. And we're here to we're here to let it loose today, basically, on Apple. So don't be afraid to share your thoughts. We have a few. We've produced a few videos about it. And I mean, where do we start? Guys, maybe give it a little bit of a 10, 15 second, say hello to my audience. But hopefully some of your audience is here as well. But yeah, where do we start?
Where do we start?
Yeah, there's so much to talk about, so little to enjoy.
Yes, yeah. Thanks,
We've
everyone.
been very critical, haven't we?
Yeah. That should have been the tagline for last week's releases. So much to talk about, so little to enjoy.
Yes.
That's brilliant.
I think there's a little bit of a, as I call, I think I'm going to get demonetized today. But there's a bit of a shit sandwich, right? Because there is one good product that I thought kind of, made the year for me. But for everything else, it's been a shit show for me. So
is that the Apple Watch Ultra?
The Apple Watch is the highlight for me this year, and probably the last few years.
Same.
It was the first time I felt, like it was the old Apple. But it'll be interesting to see how everyone else feels about the other products. Yeah,
I noticed. I found one thing that they did last week that I've literally only just discovered because I've been grabbing some footage from the. This is how bored I was of it. I hadn't watched the official films, as they call them, about the new iPads until today. So I was grabbing some footage for a video tomorrow. And I don't know about YouTube, but I had no idea that on the 10th generation iPad, they've moved the FaceTime camera to the proper position. The kind I didn't know that until today. So that's the one thing they got right last week. That was it.
Yeah.
And also it has the keyboard has a function row. The new keyboard. So basically, that's what I was so frustrated about in my video. Like all the things I wanted for my iPad Pro, which is enormously more expensive, we now getting on the entry level iPad. Most notably the camera. And there's these people saying, and they're right. We can't have that camera there because this is where the magic. What is it? The pencil, the Apple Pencil 2 goes magnetically, which is probably the reason why they stuck with that ridiculously old Magic Pencil 1 on the new iPad. But I mean, we've been asking for this for.
Can we just focus on that one for a sec? What the hell is that thing that they're selling that you have to buy for the Gen 1 pen?
The adapter.
I mean,
yes. Is that real or is that Photoshop?
It's real. It's completely real. Yeah, it's £9 in the UK. I think $9 as well in the US.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
What bothers me about that is that the pencil, because you have to plug it into the side. I mean, already that looked ridiculous. But if you're in a coffee shop now, that's going to extend it even further to the point where it's encroaching on the person next to you. So they're going to have like this Apple Pencil.
What were they
on
thinking?
The shoulder.
Seriously, what the hell is that? I mean. It's not Apple, right? I mean, it's the worst experience. Having a dongle from a pen. Jesus.
There's two things there to consider. One is, of course, that they can't give us the Apple Pencil 2 because it was either the pencil or the camera on the side, unless they're going for a huge redesign, which I was hoping for, because we've been asking for the camera to be moved to the right side of the iPad for years. And they haven't done it, but it requires a reshuffle because they have to fix the situation with the pencil. But the other thing is, of course, that it's very Apple-y to do something like that and then sell you the solution. So they create a problem and they sell you the solution. Very Apple thing to do.
It is indeed, and it's and we see that across the board, right? And what is getting to me as well is the fact that. They're not even trying to hide it anymore, right? They're really trying to make you buy the more expensive version of anything. I mean, including the watch, right? I love the watch, but they're kind of making kind of from a price perspective, making sense for you to go that extra $100 to $200 more. Yeah.
Are you referring to the difference between the iPad 10 and the iPad Air?
That's another one. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't hunting hard recommend the iPad 10, to be honest, because I haven't really thought that much about it, because I do love the iPad Air. You know, it doesn't pretend to be something else, right? It is a tablet, and it does a beautiful job at it. It's got the Touch ID. It's got a decent enough screen, speakers. So yeah, I don't really see why I would buy the 10th gen. You know, it's just
I've seen
the iPad Air.
Yeah, I've seen a few people say that they think the iPad Air shouldn't be there anymore, which doesn't make any sense because it's got a lot more going for it. It's got a better screen, slightly better screen with the P3 color and the laminated stuff. But it's got the proper Apple Pencil 2 support. It's got the magnet on the side of it. It's got it doesn't have that new. I like the look of that new kickstand, that kind of Microsoft Surface-like stand for the 10th generation. But regardless of that for an extra, I think it's £170 in the UK. Whichever spec you go for between the 10th generation iPad and the iPad Air, the jump up is always £170 extra for the iPad Air. For that money, which it's not nothing, but it's not a huge amount of money when you're into the hundreds anyway. It just get the iPad Air. That 10th generation, unless you want a yellow one, it doesn't make any sense.
No, I don't know. I mean, maybe for corporate users is the use case that I can always refer to, because it will be fairly cheap and they'll get huge discounts, and you can just see, right, if you join a company, they'll give you an iPad, and that could be the iPad 10. But as a consumer, I see more use on the Air, to be honest.
You've both bought one, haven't you? You both got one on the way, the 10th gen.
I didn't buy any.
Yeah, I did because I'm super curious, actually. I want to try it out. The thing is that, I was so disappointed in the iPad, the M2 iPad. I expected at least a few more things to have changed. I didn't expect anything groundbreaking because the M1, like I said also in my review, it's already overkill. We're not using the full potential of that iPad. So who needs more, right? But I really expected it to have some new features, like a different way of charging, or maybe MagSafe. I really wanted the camera to move, but I appreciate that needs a redesign, which is probably not going to happen this year. But this is like an M1 iPad S, right? Nothing changed really. And I don't know if I'm buying what they're trying to sell us about. You need this to be able to use what is it, DaVinci Resolve. I mean, I'm not an expert on DaVinci Resolve and its requirements, but I can't imagine that the M1 can't run it. I don't believe that.
Exactly. Yeah, and a lot of people are saying, "Oh, but he's got this." But in the grand scheme of
the
things,
video engine.
Yeah, but it is one pro app, right? And if it comes through, right, at the moment we haven't seen it yet. But yeah, I don't know. Is that enough to justify? And like you said, it's why wouldn't it run on the M1? You'd be mad, right? So they would say M2 only, and you can definitely see, right? Even not certain apps, but even an iPad OS Gen 2 or whatever, or an iPad or a Mac OS for the iPad with M2 only attached to it.
Yeah,
that will drive me mad. I don't know.
But they backtracked on Stage Manager, didn't they, with the M1 only thing? That's now, I don't know how far it goes back now, but it goes back to earlier iPad Pros, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So, they're like our, well, won't get political, but they're like our UK government. Won't go down that road. Yeah, I don't know. I'm the same with the iPad Pro. So I've got one coming this week on Wednesday. I've got no idea how to review it, what to do with it. I might do the kind of reverse unboxing. I might just box it up and send it back. Make that the video, because I'm a bit like
I'd watch that.
Thank you. That's one viewer. Like Patrick, I've got no enthusiasm for it at all. I've got a 2018 iPad Pro, which is great, and I think it's great they've brought DaVinci Resolve to the platform, but it's embarrassing that it's beat Final Cut Pro to it. I don't understand why they haven't done this. When they're messing around introducing features like Stage Manager that no one's asked for, and also I think, to kind of caveat all of this, I know this is that people are watching 3 video editors here, so we're going to be a bit selfish with this and ask for things that we want. Obviously, I do appreciate there's much more beyond Final Cut Pro that people want on the iPad, but that's such an obvious example of something that Apple has themselves. They make it themselves within the 4 walls of their garden. yeah, it's nowhere to be seen on the iPad.
Yeah.
But the thing,
should we talk
let's
about
let's talk about Alex. Can we just talk about this situation with Resolve? Because I'm wondering the same thing as Mark, and I really want to know what the viewers think about that. Because my question there is, for years we have been asking for Final Cut Pro, and appreciating that it won't be the full version of Final Cut Pro, but maybe Final Cut Pro Lite or whatever, so we can edit on the fly and then do the magic, when you get back to your desk. But now we have Apple pushing different like third-party software. So I'm wondering, do they have a stake in it, and is that the reason why, or what's the thing? Because some people, I'm sure, that really like iPads are now considering going to learn DaVinci Resolve, stepping away potentially from Final Cut Pro. So they're losing customer base in the software department, at least, to a third party. That doesn't make any sense to me.
My opinion is smoke and mirrors. I really don't see this as I think it's almost like a delay tactics. Let's give them something. Because I had a few users come in my comment section saying, "Oh yeah, but now we've got this amazing DaVinci Resolve software coming in. That's going to be great." It's like, yeah, but as you're saying, Patrick, why not Final Cut, right? And it's to me, it's just a tactic, I think, to kind of keep us a little bit happier. But yeah, I don't know.
I wonder if it plays into the whole Mac thing. I was thinking the other day, or 2 or 3 weeks ago, I went to London for the day, and I took with me my iPad. No, I didn't take my iPad. Sorry, I took my MacBook Pro 16-inch and also the MacBook Air. I won't explain why I took both. It's stupid, but I thought while I was there, if I had just the iPad Pro, that would be everything I needed, because I could write on it, I could do my video editing on it if it had Final Cut Pro. I wonder if maybe this is complete guesswork on my part. I wonder if they're fairly sort of conscious about potentially stealing market share from their own Mac platform with things like Final Cut Pro if it suddenly works on the iPad Pro and is it isn't watered down, works just as well. Maybe they don't want to cannibalize their Mac sales with the iPad Pro. I don't know. There's a very fine line between those two machines, isn't there? The more capable the iPad gets. Maybe that's part of it.
I think it definitely plays a big part in everything to do with the iPad and the MacBooks as well, right? I mean, we would have touch screen by now if they didn't worry about that cannibalization of products. But yeah, it's a bit short-sighted, I think, because long term, I don't really see the iPad replacing a MacBook. Per se, for people who actually use a MacBook, there's going to be those few situations where you're traveling or you're kind of commuting, where you might want to use the iPad instead of a MacBook. I don't know. Are Apple saying now we have to have, the MacBook Air for that and the iPad for just watching Netflix? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't assume there to be a full blown Final Cut Pro for the iPad. I don't even know if I'd want that, to be honest. It's already difficult to edit on anything smaller than a 27-inch screen. I don't want to do that much work on an iPad, even a 12.9-inch. But what I would love, which is what I would see the future as, is to have a kind of a handoff, like you have with the phone. You're having a video call and you get to your desk and boom, it's there. I want that for Final Cut. I want to do the basic stuff, when I'm traveling, and then sit down at my desk and then seamlessly continue on my computer.
Yeah. That's how I've always viewed the iPad, as being that just a kind of portable addition to your Mac, which is obviously what it is. But the idea of taking that to a coffee shop and cracking on with an edit without having to take my Mac with me is perfect. And personally, I'm the same. I wouldn't then replace my Mac with my iPad. It would just be a lovely accompaniment to it.
Yeah.
Whereas at the moment, it's just this thing which I love. I love the iPads I've got, but they've never really found a proper home. I think Google have kind of picked up on this, haven't they? Because I don't know if you guys watched all of the presentation about the Pixel stuff, but the Pixel tablet next year, that's going to have this kind of magnetized home base, which turns it into basically like a Nest Hub, really. But they did loads of research beforehand, apparently, where they asked people, what do you do with your iPads and your tablets? And the response was, well, they run out of charge. we trip over them, we leave them in the cupboard, and we don't use them because they're not our phones, and we just don't know what to do with them. So, and I think that's a really interesting point. And I've always had that problem with iPads where I don't really know what to do. If someone took all my iPads away now, would I miss them? I'd miss the iPad mini, I think, but I don't know about the rest of them.
Yeah, the mini is awesome. Let's be honest. It's my favorite. I mean, I've always been like the advocate for the iPad Pro, and it's still great, obviously, but it is like a Mac in many ways. And the iPad mini is like, it's bigger. It's big enough to be a tablet. You can read books on it, magazines. You can watch YouTube comfortably without, wanting a bigger screen necessarily. It's a nice thing also for gaming. If it had a better screen, I mean, I keep saying if there would be a mini Pro, I just literally throw my money at Apple. I would buy it immediately and sell all my other iPads. But the thing with the docking station is something that I think is a really cool idea, because the way I use my iPad currently, iPads, is just like that. I have these little stands. They're these Pitaka charging stands, scattered throughout the office, and I dock them there and I use them to change my lights and whatnot. They're kind of hubs. Like that's how I use them mostly. And then at the end of the day, I'll take one of them home and, use them for couch surfing, but no heavy lifting at all on the iPads.
Right. So the other launch that we had this year was obviously the iPhone 14, and that's, to me anyway, it was a very lukewarm sort of update. I'm not coming from an iPhone 13 and a 12 before that. I really don't see the point of the upgrade. But do you guys, how do you guys feel about that? And people watching as well, let us know here. What did you think about the iPhone 14 and 14 Pro?
I think if you're upgrading from the 12 or the 11 or anything before that, I think it's a huge upgrade. I've spoken to 2 or 3 people who have done that, and they've all said the same thing, which is like, this is amazing, incredible. I think anything after that, obviously the 13, it's just pointless. Although that's always been the case. Very few people upgrade their phones yearly apart from us, because that's what we do for a living. But if I was a regular consumer, I wouldn't bother at all. I don't know. They're amazing phones. They're incredible pieces of kit, and they always have been. And I'd been using the iPhone 13 mini for a year, which I absolutely loved and still do. But I'd forgotten how premium the Pro series iPhones feel. And they're just very, very nice phones. But then the Pixel 7 comes along, and the Pixel 7 Pro in particular, which I've been using as my Android phone, and that wipes the floor with it, mainly because of the price. I think it's $899 in the UK, which is still a lot of money, but it's not 1,200 quid.
Yeah. Pixels are incredible. I tried my first one last year. Well, Pixel 6 Pro. Yeah, they really punch above their weight, I think. I don't know. For me, I think from the 12 to the 13, there was a big jump in my view, anyway. Right, there was a better display, which we waited 5 years for, but never mind. But from the 13 to the 14, I don't see what the big jump is, unless you want to talk about the Monkey Island.
Monkey Island.
Yeah. Can I give you a little bit of a hot take?
Go on.
I feel right. I know it's not objectively true what I'm going to say, but it feels like a downgrade, because what I'm using, for me is a 13 Pro with a worse battery. That's what it feels like. Monkey Island, I don't see it anymore. I mean, it's just there. It doesn't add anything. It doesn't take anything away. But the battery life is just absolute rubbish, at least on mine. I don't know if you guys, if the upgrades fixed it for you. For me, it absolutely didn't. I'm almost 60% down. So it's down to 40 from this morning. And I didn't do anything special with it. I can't get through a full day. And with my 13, I was always bragging, basically. Look at my phone. It's still at 70%. But this case, nothing feels new, but the battery feels worse.
You've got the regular Pro, haven't you? Not the Pro Max.
The regular Pro, yeah.
Yeah, I've got the Pro
14.
Max, which is pretty good, actually. I think if you turn the always-on display off, it's better.
Oh, I did.
Even with it on, it's pretty good. I can get through a couple of days. Although I've not updated yet. I think it's coming today, isn't it? 16.1 is apparently has quite a big fix for battery life. I've heard.
Okay,
I don't know if that's true.
That
or
would be good.
Yeah.
48 megapixels.
I'm sensing the sarcasm in some of these comments here, right?
Yeah, Mr. H Tech, Dynamic Island, sorry, Monkey Island as it's known, is revolutionary. I need to get the name right. I like Monkey Island. Should we just keep calling it Monkey Island?
I think it is the name now. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned.
I think it's not revolutionary. I don't think personally. I think it's very functional. It's very early days for it. I've sort of forgot it's there. It does do some weird things. I had a weird thing with it earlier. I was in the gym trying to swipe through a few apps and things, and it got into this weird state where nothing would work on the screen. And whenever I went to flick up from the bottom, all it did was like Monkey Island kind of like bulged slightly and went back in, and I couldn't turn the phone off. It was like stuck in Monkey Island forever, doing nothing at all.
It's definitely buggy. Yeah, I recorded there was a tweet I recorded where it just went into this wobbly state as well, and I couldn't do anything about it. It's just in this going large and small really quickly. It's really weird. I hate it when you're watching content, and it's not everything. It depends on what you're watching, if it's an app or if it's a website. But you see, it's the shape of the notch now, because it only covers half of the pill shape. And it's just, it definitely catches my eye a lot more than the actual notch before. So I think I agree with you in that sense, Patrick. That, it's actually worse. It's a downgrade.
Monkey Island, I don't feel like it's a downgrade. It's just that when they announced it, I thought it was really, really cool, because I thought it was just such a good idea to make something interesting of that stupid pill cutout, right? Yeah. And not that the notch was any better, but they just made it cool. And I really appreciated that. But I really expected something more, I guess, some more features per app. And maybe that's also partly done to third-party developers, etc. But it's just like, for instance, when you're on Spotify and you can see the album art, it's like this green blot. It's nothing. It doesn't work. So it could have been better.
Not that good, yeah.
I think the attention to detail on some of it is great, though. I've mentioned this before, where the audio waveforms, if you're playing music, it's actually in time to the audio, so it is actually bouncing up and down properly. But when you're on a call, I don't know if you guys have noticed this. So if you're calling someone, it has the same audio waveform, and the left-hand side of the waveform is the person talking. And when you speak, the right-hand side of the waveform bounces up and down in this tiny little thing, cool. Which unless you're an absolute geek like me, you're not going to notice that. But I love the fact someone thought of that and spent God knows how long doing that. Things like that are quite satisfying. It's nice they've invested a lot of time and a lot of kind of love and effort into it, which is quite reassuring. But I agree with Patrick. I think it is early days, really. We need to see more stuff, and we need to see what third-party developers do with it as well.
Yeah, I don't know. Ultimately, to me, it's a little bit like the iPad, and having an app like DaVinci come in. This to me feels another bit of deflection, right? It's like, oh, look at this thing that we've done. That we spent a year working on, but actually under the hood is, okay, we've got more megapixels and action mode. Okay, action mode, I actually thought it was going to be a gimmick until I used it, and I was actually impressed. But again, how many people are running with their iPhones and recording stuff, right?
It is good, though.
I don't know.
It is good.
Yeah. What I didn't like about the presentations, and how you could also tell that they really didn't do much at all in terms of new stuff, is that it sounded like last year's presentation. It's like copy pasting from, and then selling it as new things, right? It can do this, it can do that. And I'm like, yeah, but I could already do that last year. It's not new, but they sold it as new. And it really made me, I don't know, frustrated me.
Yeah. I don't know. And then we got the 14 Plus, which I just returned mine, but I haven't actually sent it yet. I actually like how light it was, and I like the size as well. But yeah, it's basically last year's phone, right? I mean, there's nothing much to say. I mean, I don't know. I couldn't recommend that to anyone. In my video, I was honestly like, I'm lost here. I think it's a little bit like the iPad 10.
Yeah,
it's maybe a corporate account sort of situation where companies will buy and give that to employees.
I've heard it's got really good battery life, hasn't it? That's been a lot of the reviews have said how good the battery life is. What was your experience with that, Alex? Did you?
Exactly that. Yeah, it's amazing. But again, it's £900 here in the UK, right? So you kind of expect it to be at that level when it's so close to.
The battery life, it makes sense because it's huge, but it's not a very demanding phone. So it should have the best battery life of all of them, actually.
Yeah. But again, I just sold my iPhone 13 Pro Max on eBay, and that was a 256 gig, and I got £800 for it. So I think that's a better phone. I know it's heavier and it's a bit less ergonomic in that sense, but it's a better phone. It's got there's a whole camera extra, right, and a better display for £100 less if you find one that's in a good condition. Yeah, I just couldn't hand in heart recommend the Plus to anybody because the 13 Pro is there.
What do you guys think about the whole bloated product lineup thing? Because it's so difficult at the moment to avoid the obvious thing with this, which is if Steve was here. I wrote about this morning, and I always try and avoid saying that because it's not fair on who is there. And he's not here.
There, the entire team, right, of designers and marketing people would have been fired by now, surely.
Oh, but do you think are we getting back to that point now where it needs someone to come in, walk over to a whiteboard, and draw that that quadrant and do the consumer professional?
100%. I mean, the man can't even wave a flag. Have you seen the Formula One? It's like, come on,
what happened,
like, dude? Oh, it was Tim Cook. He was I don't know if for those of you who follow motor racing, so Formula One yesterday, Tim Cook at the end waved the checker flag, and it's usually
wasn't really a wave.
It wasn't
really a wave, was it?
It was almost like he was trying not to get his watch to a cap. It was like very.
Oh my.
But no smiles, nothing. People. I mean, anyway, they could have put Beyonce or someone a little bit more exciting there.
The best part of it, and this is a bit for the F1 stuff, but I don't know if you saw it, Alex. On Martin Brundle's grid walk, he was walking past Mercedes, and the Mercedes engineers were doing something with the car with the brakes, and obviously Martin Brundle wanted to see what was going on, so he was like, "Hang on a minute, come on," dragging the cameraman over, and there was someone standing in the way, and Martin Brundle was like, "Hang on, mate, out of the way, mate." That was Tim Cook. He kind of like shoved Tim Cook out of the way.
Well,
to get to have a look.
It was great. Maybe that's why he was upset.
But yeah, maybe that's what it was.
Do you know who I am?
Could be.
Yeah, it was like a sloth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
but how much of this do you think has to do with Johnny Ive leaving? Because nobody's talking about that. But the designs have changed a lot.
Yeah, they have. Wasn't the iMac one of his last designs or something? So maybe it's the next one where we're going to see a shitstorm. I don't know.
I wonder if the Apple Watch Ultra would have come out with him there.
It's a really good question. Yeah, because it's thicker, it's bigger, isn't it? It's everything he wouldn't want. That's what it is, really. And the same thing actually with the MacBook Pros. The update last year with that, with the making them again thicker, heavier, bringing back ports. Putting more ports on it than taking them away. I don't know. I mean, I think everything changed when Steve obviously left and passed away. I think at that point Tim Cook came in. I don't know if you guys have seen the book or read the book by Tripp. I can't never think of what his surname is, but it's After Steve. It's a really interesting book, and all of it. I mean, how much of it is true, you don't know. Obviously, he's spoken to a lot of people behind the scenes at Apple, but his point with it is that the kind of the Steve Jobs era was the kind of magical era when everything was magical and had the reality distortion feel going on. And after he went and then Tim Cook came in, it became the era of just making as much money as possible, because that's what Tim Cook does. He's a proper operations man. He knows how to squeeze every last drop of profit out of a production line. But the kind of offset of that is what we're seeing now, I think, which is a confusing product line. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. If there's a comment by Brian Bruce, he's saying that you can say what you want about Tim Cook, but he's made Apple a $2 trillion company.
Yeah, buy shares.
But
I mean,
that's
a
no, that's exactly the thing, though.
Yep.
We can see it. We can see that he's doing that, and we can see how he's doing it by repackaging things and using old chassis. And he's a fantastic businessman. But I think he's a good interim manager. He's been there for a while, but I don't know how it was. If he's going to stick around for 10 more years and follow the same line, how that's going to end up, because people are not stupid and they're starting to notice that he's making this into a cash machine.
Yeah.
But the soul is leaving, and the products aren't getting that much better at all, and people are feeling like they're being squeezed, and prices are going up. And of course there's different things going on the world stage that contribute to that, but I think the way the prices have gone up in Europe, even on existing machines, is just nuts.
And there's also the experience, right? If you're in the Apple ecosystem, which I think does, it gets a lot more credit than it deserves these days. But just imagine, right? If you're in that ecosystem, and I think we can all relate to this. You have about 4 different cables and chargers. Steve wouldn't exist, right? You have the Apple, which I don't think the Apple Watch, you can't really get away from having a different charger there, right? Because we don't want to port on the Apple Watch. But everything else, like, why isn't it USB-C or wireless, right? It's just having that lightning cable on stuff. Even the latest AirPods Pro, I don't think that's why does this why has it got the lightning on this?
But I think this is what Tim Cook Apple's all about. That the fact it's not on those AirPods Pro 2 is utterly ridiculous. Every other pair of headphones I have in this studio, and there's a lot of them, are all USB-C and all very easy to charge. There's no excuse for it at all. The only reason they have got USB-C, I think the same thing for the iPhone, is probably down to production and supply chains, and again, maximizing profit all the way out of that. That's why that's the case, and that's why they don't really care. And it's also why they brought out the new Apple TV Siri remote with USB-C before the iPhone. And that is I mean, from our point of view, that's farcical. We can laugh at it, we can make memes, but they don't care, because Tim Cook is driving as much profit through this. That's what matters to him. He's answering to shareholders. He's got a lot of weight on his shoulders for that. But I think that just quickly on the interim manager thing, I tend to agree with that. I think it's going to get to a stage where it is such a valuable company, but because the competition is getting so fierce, and someone asked the question a moment ago about, I think it was Mike, about the Pixel Watch versus the current Apple, the regular Apple watches. It's a really good competitor. It's not up there software-wise. WatchOS beats it hands down, but it's interesting. And I think if Google keep developing that watch, it will only get better and better. I do think at some stage Apple needs someone with a bit more about them in terms of product, because apparently Tim Cook very rarely went into the design studio, very rarely visits those guys, which doesn't make any sense to me at all. If you're the CEO of a company that is built around design, why wouldn't you want to go in there all the time and see what they're doing and talk about it and give your opinion? That bothers me personally.
Yeah.
No, I think that's exactly what the problem is, though, and what differentiates him from Steve Jobs, because Steve Jobs was a micromanager. Not that that's necessarily better, but he cared about every single thing, every single detail had to be perfect. Tim doesn't, from my perspective. I don't know Tim. But it seems like he cares about profit margins, but he doesn't necessarily care about the product, if it is the best product it could be, if the user experience even sometimes suffers, if it means even the way they schedule things, like pushing out products to be in a certain quarter so that they have a higher result for the shareholders, all that kind of stuff. Consumers don't play a part in that at all. It's
exactly
soulless operation.
From Brian there, but yeah, I totally see that as well. It's to me, Steve wasn't perfect, right? But you definitely felt a little bit more excitement about the company when he was around. It's just the amount of they were always ahead, right? They weren't. You wouldn't see them blatantly delaying things or blatantly, like the iPad Pro this year. I know it's a bit of kind of wishful thinking, right? But wouldn't it be great if they came out and said, we keep saying we're green. How about this? This year we're not going to release an iPad Pro. We're going to focus on software updates. That would have won me back as a customer, because that would have been the right thing to do. Because the iPad Pro, the M2 iPad Pro, is nothing to me more than a profit-making product, because it doesn't. And I know every organization has to make profit, right? But there's a balance between, as you said there, Patrick, product quality, service. And when you think service, you think Amazon, right? And customer satisfaction. Apple has gone too far into just making money, and product and customer satisfaction is coming second, and service.
Yeah, and Brian's not wrong. He had a ton of bad ideas, but I think most visionaries have lots of bad ideas, and Silicon Valley is full of horrendous ideas until they come up with that one groundbreaking idea. You can't have only good ideas, and the things that he did come up with, even the iPad, right? In the beginning, I remember because I'm old, and you guys probably remember too. Remember when it came out, there was memes all over the internet of just 4 iPhones glued together. Nobody appreciated the iPad for what it was. It was just a massive iPhone because it was ahead of its time. And a lot of things Steve came up with were ahead of its time. And now, looking back at it, he was right. He was right then, but people weren't ready for it. And, I'm not saying that he would have only churned out great ideas now, but Tim Cook, in my opinion, doesn't have that many good ideas at all. He's just basically regurgitating or repeating what has been done before, and hoping that it will last long enough for him to go out when he's still up.
Yeah and I think there's part of me that thinks that Apple is gone, we're never going to see it again because they are so successful, but deep down I'm thinking the competitors are not, they're not laying down, right? They're not staying still. I mean, I know Android apps have a long way to go, but then they're not that far behind. I don't think, from an experience point of view. If I've been using the Fold, and I know it's not the perfect device either, but there's a breath of fresh air out there when you pick a device and you think, oh wow, this is Android. That's gone. That massive gap in experience. It is a nice experience now for people like me who used Apple pretty much for 20 years, if not or more. But same with the tablet from Samsung. Again, awesome experience. There's the competition are catching up, and I think the more customers get fed up with this. I don't know. Maybe we're not the target audience anymore for Apple, right? But
maybe.
Wouldn't say that. I gave them a lot of shit, but I still like Apple. I still enjoy the operating systems, both of them, or multiple. So I guess the watch has a different one, and I'm still excited about what they might do in the future. So I'm invested into it, and I'm not jumping ship today, but I'm getting frustrated. I can tell, and if they keep this up for a year, 2 years, I might just lose interest.
It's tough, isn't it? I think next year is going to be really interesting because apparently we don't know, do we? But there's going to be the AR, VR, whatever it's going to be type stuff. I think that is going to happen next year. And you do wonder if I've seen a few people kind of wonder if it's the case of them waiting for this big stuff next year, which is why the iPads and the forthcoming Macs next month, even though there's not much to say about them anyway, but they probably want to save their marketing effort for that and all of their stage time, etc. We've got that. We've got something. I mean, the whole car thing. We still don't know what's happening with that. If whether or not what we saw with CarPlay, the next version of CarPlay, is the start of something much bigger in automotive potentially. But it does feel like they've reached this point now with the iPad, the Macs even, and also the iPhone, where it's hit a ceiling now. It's hit an innovation ceiling because the key thing with Apple is that unlike Google and unlike to a degree Samsung and a few others, they'll only ever give us stuff when they feel the tech is ready for consumers, which takes a long time, which is why we haven't seen anything from VR for them yet, because it's not ready as far as they're concerned. So they've reached the point with the stuff they're happy to put in front of the public. Well, they can't do much more with it apart from iterate it, which is fine. I'm not moaning at them for that at all. But I do think next year is quite crucial in terms of them doing something really, really interesting.
Yeah, AR is, I think, maybe not so much VR, right? I mean, I have a different opinion on whether it's virtual reality like the Facebook thing or AR, which is for me more exciting, more useful, right? Because it's kind of overlaying information into the real world. And frankly, anything that gets me away from holding a rectangular piece of glass, it would be awesome, because we've been doing this for 2-3 generations now, right? And I think
what was that?
Google tried it, right?
What was that thing? Yeah, what was that thing Marquez reviewed recently? The VR, was that Meta?
I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
I saw it was a short, I think,
so.
and that application has me excited. Where you can sit down at a bistro table, basically, and then I have 3 massive screens in front of you, virtually, obviously, but who cares, right? And if you can have that kind of an environment in a tiny space, that's game changing. That's the kind of stuff I'm really interested in.
Yeah, that's an interesting point about the Fold.
Gaming is definitely a future. Yeah.
That's an interesting point about the Fold 4, which I haven't got. I've got the Flip, but I know, Alex, you've done a lot of stuff with the Fold, haven't you? It's been really popular.
I love it. This is my 80% of my work now is done on this, as a smartphone. I use my iPhone for FaceTime and AirDrop, basically, because it is nice to use. I mean, the screen isn't perfect. There's that thing in the middle, but you can see it becoming less and less intrusive. When you're watching something, you don't really notice it that much, and it just feels a lot nicer than I thought you would. When I first saw it last year, I was like, this is way too cumbersome. So I didn't buy it just because it looked clunky. But it's actually there's a nice weight to it and a nice ergonomics to it. It's a lot smaller than it looks. But that was my first sort of impression. And it's fast. I mean, it's got a Snapdragon Gen 1 or something. It's really fast. Which makes a difference, because in comparison with the S22 Ultra here in the UK, with the Exynos crap, it blows it.
Although that's better now after the update. The update's sort of fixed it.
It is better now, actually, yeah. But just in time for the S23.
Rob's made an appearance. Is my podcast co-host, Rob. Hi, Rob. Whose username is always actually quite nice, Rob. And he is really nice. I'm not sure. I think I asked him a little while ago why that's his name, but I think he was called out of school or something. Anyway, digress. But Rob says the most amusing thing about the 10th generation iPad is that they've essentially made it a Microsoft Surface with the kickstand and detachable keyboard, but with a gimped OS, which is such a good point, isn't it? It's not even Mac OS.
Yeah.
Just quickly on that, guys.
I mean, how do you
some rumors?
Yeah.
Sorry, just quickly. There's been some rumors on Mac OS coming to the iPad. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
But
that was what I was referring to earlier. You can see it as a M2 only thing. I can smell it already.
I don't believe it.
If it comes, but
I don't believe it, because their whole ethos has been, to have the ecosystem. They wouldn't do it. It's just not going to happen. They've even said it many times. We're not going to put Mac OS on an iPad ever. So, I mean, even if it happens, I'd be very, very surprised. But just quickly before we depart from the 10th gen, this comment about the keyboard. So I'm a little surprised too, because what I really liked about the Magic Keyboard is the usability on the lap. The viewing angles could be a bit better, but it's nice. The weight distribution is just really good, and you can actually use it on your lap. It doesn't matter where you're sitting. That's what I hate about these the kickstands. That's what I didn't like about the Samsung what is it, 8 Ultra, S8 Ultra, because it feels super uncomfortable on your legs, on your lap. It doesn't work. You need a desk, which makes it a little bit, defeats the purpose.
Yeah, I commented on that on my video, because the accessories for the Tab S8 Ultra, it's almost like the accessories companies ignored it completely. It's an amazing tablet, but it's really hard to find good accessories for it. I mean, they are out there, and there's some good stands for it. But you're right, the keyboard cover that comes with it from Samsung, or that it's an add-on from Samsung, it's pants. Yeah, it doesn't stand, and I didn't even buy it, because it's like I saw some videos. It's like, no, I'm not. That's no good, right? If you can't put it on your lap, like the iPad, the Magic Keyboard is just on a different class, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you reckon, Patrick, that the iPad 10 keyboard is actually better?
I don't know if it's better. I was just interested in it because, well, first of all, because it's the only thing that felt quite newish in the in the slew of press releases. I was going to say in the event, but there was none. I'm just that not. I'm so not interested in the M2 iPad Pro that I'm just literally not going to review it. I don't see a point in buying it, and then even if I would buy it just to send it back, what am I going to say about it? It's the same tablet, slightly different. So I really look forward to Mark's review. You're going to have a challenge.
I'm not.
I really want to see it.
Someone
no, but so the 10, I just want to see it and experience it because it looks different. It feels different. It has the camera. It has a keyboard. I'm not sure if I'm going to like the keyboard for the reasons I just mentioned, but it does have I want to feel what it types like. I really like the iPad keyboard. It's my favorite keyboard, not of iPads, but of any keyboard. It's the one that types most comfortably for me. So I'm just curious. I don't know if I'm going to keep it or we'll see, but it's the one that I want to review for sure.
Yeah, with the Pro, I might get it just because I had out of thousands of people. I mean, my iPad videos, it was mainly a rant. Really, it wasn't really a video. Got a lot of people commenting, and the majority of them agreeing with what I was saying. But there were a couple of people saying, actually, I want the M2 iPad Pro because I have this 1 or 2 apps that I use. In my video, I actually made a comment, sort of tongue-in-cheek, saying, yeah, for the 6-7 people out there who actually use the M2 processor. But there are some apps, right? There are some 3D modeling apps and whatever. I would love to put those sort of apps side by side with the M1 iPad Pro and see, is it perceptible? Because if it is like millisecond sort of level, right? Because when it comes to even memory utilization, right? I think it was only 6 months ago that you can actually, some apps, not all apps, can use more than 4 meg, out of the 16 meg 16 gig of RAM that you got on the iPad Pro. So I'm curious to know, out of those really like super pro apps, the 3D modeling apps and for artists and stuff like that, is it really noticeable? So that's the only reason I would get it, just to try that.
I'd be curious too, but I'm not the guy to test that. I have no understanding of those things, and seems like a bit of a challenge to learn that just for review. So I'm gonna leave that to people that use the software.
Yes, I asked a Procreate user. I mean, he's got a massive channel on YouTube, Brian Coble. So Brian, help me out here, man. What's the difference with this, with the iPad Pro? What does that do to you when you use Procreate? And all he said was, it gives me huge amounts of canvas size. So you can now draw on like outdoor size canvases. Okay, brilliant. So, it's just not, we're not using the power that's inside the iPad. You may as well have a used tampon inside it. We don't know.
It depends what that massive canvas means to him. If that has some kind of productivity benefit or enables him to finish work quicker for clients, amazing. That's a worthwhile investment. I think the way I'm looking at this kind of purchase of the M2 iPad Pro, which I am slightly regretting now, I've got to be honest. It probably is going to go back. Spoiler, but the faffing around doing that is annoying anyway. But anyway, regardless of that, I'm looking at it from a business's perspective, like a business owner's perspective. I've got this older iPad now, which is, coming on for 5 years old, which I'm not really using, but I want to use. Is spending whatever it was, 1,200 quid on this new one. What am I getting for that from a creative business owner? Is it going to give me anything for that money, or is it literally going to be the case of saying, well, this is just the same? Yeah. It's got one extra lens, one extra camera. It has got a better screen, to be fair, than the 2018 one. That will be interesting. Hover mode for the Apple Pencil. I'm not an illustrator, so it makes no difference to me whatsoever. I don't think anyway.
We've got that on the Tab S8 Ultra, and it doesn't do all the kind of the size brushes and stuff that Apple, whenever they do something, they do with a nice little kind of animation, and it makes a little bit different. But I actually turn it off because I don't like to see the dot before I draw or whatever. But I can understand that being a bit of a workflow shortcut for a lot of people, right? To be able to resize your brushes and stuff. So I totally get it, but majority.
I've heard people comment that actually, to say, well, actually that is an important feature to me because I'm an artist and, you know, I'd love to use that. The thing is though, and, you know, I might be wrong, but what I understand is that it's a software feature. So again, is that not possible on the M1? Does it require that much processing power that it cannot be done on the M1? I don't think so. I mean,
that's exactly
prove me wrong, of course.
That's why I want to buy the M2, just to see out of these crazy apps of people saying, and I'm not saying that there's not a lot of people. I think there was a doctor, and maybe, I mean, I can remember them, which tells me that there was less than 5. You know, they said, I need it for X, Y, and Z. You know, either, you know, for something that is really heavily processing. But when I said, okay, and do you think the M1 iPad Pro can't do it? They couldn't really answer that. And
yeah.
And I think he tells me, right, that we know the M1 iPad Pro is way more capable than the apps that are currently out there, because they're not fully taking advantage of it.
But see, that's why I don't really think that a review, putting it side by side, wouldn't really be very helpful, because, okay, if we can conclude that it works on the M2 but not on the M1, why is that? Is it because it can't work on the M1, or because Apple is crippling it?
Yeah,
we just have to take their word for it, don't we? I think, like someone's pointed out, the fact that the Galaxy Note has had that hover thing since about 2012. It's always been there, hasn't it? When if you've got a Galaxy Note or the Ultra, you hover the stylus over it, and you see a little dot where it's going to appear. I can guarantee the M1's capable of doing that. They'll have invented something where it's not quite quick enough for them, which is down to the millisecond or something, based on what the M2 can do. Completely imperceptible to humans. But we just have to take that. We can't argue that, can we? We haven't made the M2. We haven't got a clue what it's doing. I'm not an engineer.
It's true.
I've got no
I
idea.
think sometimes they go. I think that feature in specific is probably going to be quite useful. But I think, you know, if you really care about that stuff. But in general, I think that they try too hard, in my view, to be different. Like, you know, if you take Stage Manager, for example, just copy Dex. You know, it's maybe make it a little bit more polished, but don't try to. I mean, they try too hard with Stage Manager. It's something that I now turn off because it uses too much of the screen, and it's like, you know, and it doesn't let me resize the windows the way I want. It's just, you know, it feels like a gimmick. It could be a really useful thing, but yeah, plugging it to an external monitor and then trying to resize stuff is just, at the moment anyway, not the nicest experience. I don't know if you guys used it at all.
Yeah. I did use it a little bit, and I also I really enjoyed the external screen support. I think it's coming back. I mean, is it already back? I think they just took it out to work on it. I'm sure it's not gone.
Yeah, the black bars are back. I don't know if it's coming.
Well, for now, but I'm sure it's going to be back. It has to be.
It's in the. If you watch the official video about the new iPad Pro, they feature it quite heavily in that. So it's clearly coming back. Yeah.
So it's a beta thing. But what I was referring to earlier, you know, with not trusting them, you know, not to cripple it. Obviously, they didn't win any trust when they said, you know, these features are M1 only, and then they were like, oh no, just kidding. They work on older iPads too. That didn't help, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's clearly a decision, right, that they made and thought, maybe no one will notice, and then people went up in arms. And so, okay, guys, yeah, we didn't really mean it. So, I mean, consumers do have power, right? But sometimes we don't say anything, and it takes the 3 of us. I don't see many others on YouTube kind of
just us
throwing shade.
Yeah, but that's the thing. We are the vocal minority, as we say, right? So we think that everybody cares because we, like us 3 and 100 more YouTubers, maybe more. You know, and it seems like everybody's complaining, but maybe that's not the case, right? I mean, ultimately, what really matters is, you know, consumers voting with their wallets and showing Apple that they're not happy.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what I mean as well about the competition, right? They're not lying down and saying, oh, you know, whatever. They are moving. In the smartphones, it won't be long, right? There's definitely alternatives out there. If you prepare to departure from the ecosystem, there's definitely decent options out there. It's not as hard as it used to be to move between the two.
True.
If you can, yeah.
RJ's just found a creative way of telling us he was late.
No, he's been here. He's been here earlier. Yeah.
First thing we talked about.
RJ's being very well behaved. If you don't know RJ, by the way, go follow him on Twitter. It's very entertaining.
And YouTube.
What I'll say. And YouTube, of course. Yeah, he's got an amazing channel. But yeah, he doesn't hold back. Let's put it that way. Yeah, stage manager. I've had enough of it. I gave up. I was like, okay, I'll just use Dex then. And iPad. Someone said earlier as well. It's like it is a big. The iPad Pro is just a nice Netflix watching device.
Agreed.
What else was there? I mean, there were other launches, right? Should we talk about the watch? I mean, that was the shit sandwich I mentioned earlier. What do people feel about the watch? Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
It's their product of the year. I think that and AirPods Pro 2 came.
We're all scared of saying
have
how
to say
much we like it. After shitting on that. We're all scared of saying how much we love it. It is a decent product, right? We can't lie about it.
It's a good point because they have had two big wins, I think, with that, with the and one surprising win with the AirPods Pro 2 because I wasn't expecting that at all. They are fantastic. It's a really, apart from the USB-C thing, we'll kind of let go with that.
But, over that.
Yeah, but everything else about them is fantastic. But the Ultra, the Apple Watch Ultra, it's one of the best products they've ever released, I think, and mainly because it was so surprising what they did with it, and the fact they went all out with it, didn't care, they just made it as silly as possible. I think it could be a lot more expensive than it is. I think it's pitched quite neatly price wise, and having got having had one on my wrist like you two guys for the last few weeks, I'm absolutely in love with it. It's nice. It's one of the most interesting products they've released for so long. It's really silly, it's really big, and people always comment on how big and silly it is, but that's part of the reason I love it so much. It's got a lot of character, and we've been missing that, I think, really.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
and it's also exactly it raised so many discussions online too. I'm absolutely enjoying. Like I did a little short because the clasp on the Alpine loop, I think, if you're not careful, it scratches the watch when you take it off. It's not big, but there's micro scratches, right? I made a video about it, and of course, a lot of people are saying, well, some people, let's say 40% is saying thanks, thanks for telling us. 60% of the people are saying, you pussy. Bleep, take that out. No, I mean, this is a rugged watch, people are, in sandstorms with it, and you're complaining about a scratch.
Quid. No, thank you. I'll look after it.
But this is exactly what the point was about this thing. No real adventurer is going to use this watch. They're using Garmin's or something else. This is not there yet, right? But they marketed it just right so that we can feel tough wearing one, but we don't want to scratch our Apple Watch at the same time. It's just like these modern Land Rovers. Nobody wants to bang that up and put it in our driveway, right? But they're obviously meant for off-roading and all that kind of stuff. So that's how I see the Apple Watch. It's a fantastic watch. It's the best Apple Watch ever made, objectively. It's the best battery, best screen, whatnot. And yes, I care about scratches.
Yeah,
that's fine.
No, it isn't. I haven't. It was one of those products that for the last I don't know how many years I didn't bother because it's like, I don't know, just a new sensor, just a new and like an incremental thing that I don't care about, But this one, it was different, and I think it was targeted at people like us. So like we were bored, we were not seeing the reason to go to the new series, so it had to be different, and they had to, their marketing, you got to give it to them, right? It's like, let's make it unachievable and then price it just right so that people can buy it.
Interesting marketing that.
Don't mention Land Rovers to Mark.
What did I miss?
I'm obsessed with Defenders. I really want a Defender.
Oh yeah.
Even though all I do with it is drive it to Tesco's and back.
Yeah, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. This is Apple's Defender.
It is. I said that from the start. It's the thing that no one needs. I can guarantee that 99% of the people who have bought this watch don't need it at all. No need for scuba diving or the track back feature.
You haven't seen a dog walk, man. It's treacherous.
Dangerous.
Yeah. It's just
Yeah,
how
really,
we're wired.
I get lost sometimes. I go to the pub and I forget where I live.
Yeah.
So I need to be able to trace my steps back. Anyway, well, I think we probably need to leave here. I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who joined us today. Some people even contributed with cash, which is great.
Yeah.
Beers only, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Well,
That's
and it
very
looks
nice.
like we provided a service as well for people to not pay attention to the politics right now. So all good.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for
don't
joining
forget
us.
to subscribe to Mark and Patrick as well. I'll make sure that I leave links in the description of this video, so make sure to check that.
Yeah,
see you next time.
Alex was hosting, subscribe to him twice.
No,
Subscribe and unsubscribe and subscribe again.
3 times. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.